There are some comic book stories that are so bad, so divisive, they turn so many people off that you should probably just let them forget them forever. And for some reason, Marvel and DC just have this weird fetish with tying into really shitty stories as of late. I guess I'll let this one out. We're going to be tying in Absolute Power, the big event coming up in 2024, to Heroes in Crisis. Now, Tom King has had a lot of moments during his tenure at DC Comics where he's turned a lot of people off. People lost faith in him. Stopped buying his comic books, basically stopped buying comic books altogether. Batman 50 was a moment, right? The wedding that didn't happen turned a lot of people off. A lot of retailers were pissed. Fans were pissed. A lot of people were mad at Tom King. And that basically killed off his Batman run, which made it to issue 85, but the sales just like declined after that. But Heroes in Crisis is a failure of an entirely different magnitude to where fans didn't lose confidence in Tom King and his ability to tell a good story. They just kind of hated him. It's a repugnant story. I've talked about it quite a bit here on the channel. Basically, if Dark Knight's Metal is kind of the official end of DC Rebirth, that's kind of when the trade dress goes away. Heroes in Crisis is when DC Comics decided to piss on the grave of DC Rebirth, basically turning the symbol of hope in DC Rebirth, Wally West, into a serial killer. And I don't know why they keep doing this. Like recently, we had Marvel Comics or X-Men line tie back into the Draco, one of the most divisive, hated stories in X-Men history. No one likes the Draco, the Draco as Doc likes to call it or whatever. We did get some laughs out of it as we saw the Doctor deliver Nightcrawler out of Destiny's butthole, you know, the Blue 52 moment. It was just such bad stuff, and it provided nothing of value and just made people kind of chuckle and laugh at the state of Marvel Comics. Over at DC, no one wants to remember the Rick Grayson era of Nightwing. It's just awful. Not even Dane Jerkins could fix the damn thing. And then recently in Nightwing, we're going to get a pirate story. And for some reason, Tom Taylor made Bee, who Rick Grayson kind of dated, that was a bartender. She ended up being a pirate princess or something. It's like, why the fuck are you reminding people that Rick Grayson ever even existed? Why are you even tying this stuff in there? And it's even hinted at that we might see her again. And they just continuously do this. They remind you of all the reasons that you wanted to stop reading comic books in the first place. This is what we have on the return of Heroes in Crisis to the DC Comics universe. One of the most debated DC stories in recent memory made an unexpected return, and it just so happens to help set up this summer's Absolute Power comic event. Green Arrow #9 brings Oliver Queen Green Arrow face to face with Amanda Waller once again as they confront each other amid her takeover of the Hall of Justice. Oliver tries to get an answer for why Waller has spent so long tearing his family apart and why she has brainwashed Roy Harper Arsenal as part of her latest initiative. Waller agrees to provide answers if Oliver does a job for her, stealing the logs of Sanctuary. There has to be a better way to discover the weaknesses of heroes in the DC universe than going and revisiting Sanctuary in the DC Comics universe and mythos within Heroes in Crisis. Doesn't Batman have a contingency plan literally for every single hero out there? Oliver Queen, go steal something from Batman. That would be even more exciting, although you would probably have to make Batman seem stupid or whatever. But that would be more fruitful than actually going and revisiting and reminding people of just how much they hated Heroes in Crisis and the confessionals or whatever that happened within Heroes in Crisis, which is basically just like a weird ripoff from the real world. Do they still make that show on MTV? Do people still watch it? I remember watching Real World when I was a kid. It was like the first real reality show or whatever. But you would always have that stupid confessional when they would make asses of themselves and say a bunch of stuff they probably shouldn't have. And that's what those were. They were all these just cringy fucking 9-panel grids with the heroes saying the dumbest shit in the history of the world. But the worst one was Hal Jordan saying, "I don't even know what will is." The literal manifestation of will in the DC Comics universe, who forged a Green Lantern ring out of pure will, doesn't know what will is. And then I think there was like one where Batgirl was showing off like all of her bullet wounds or something like that. It was just embarrassing stuff. And I don't think this is probably the smartest move in the world to tie in Absolute Power to Heroes in Crisis, but DC Comics are basically stupid at this point, and they just don't know any better. And the Green Arrow series, just to be honest with you, has been getting pretty sus lately anyway. Basically, it was supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries allowing Josh Williamson to bring Oliver Queen back from the dead because he died during Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. The less thought about that event, the better as well. So it's supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries, but people bought it. It was ordered heavily, so they made it an ongoing. And then issue 7 is basically nothing. Issue 8 is nothing. And now issue 9 is Amanda Waller forcing Oliver Queen to go and steal the Sanctuary log. So like, what a dead series. This thing was already trending down, and it's basically dead to me now. I'm not going to keep reading that thing. I'm so tired of Amanda Waller. I cannot believe she's the biggest threat in the entire DC Comics universe. What a lame-ass character. What a lame-ass way to reintroduce a terrible concept in Heroes in Crisis. Stop working with fucking Tom King's leftovers. Tom King's first-string ideas really aren't worth exploring that much anyway, if we're being completely honest about this, and now we're just using the stuff that didn't work. Next, they state the concept of Sanctuary was introduced in Tom King's Batman run before becoming a key fixture in 2018's Heroes in Crisis. As a mental health facility hidden away on a farm in Nebraska, their heroes could work on and record private testimonials about their various traumas. This premise led to the events of Heroes in Crisis, in which a massacre inexplicably killed nearly all of its superhero patients, with Wally West being dubbed the culprit. And quite frankly, I'm shocked that Joshua Williamson would ever want to touch this stuff again. Does he not remember how Sanctuary and Heroes in Crisis basically destroyed his Flash run? Did you read Flash War? I unfortunately did read Flash War, and it wasn't very good. And at the end, Barry and Wally are sitting there, and Wally's like, you know what? I need help. I'm really depressed. I need to go for treatment. I'm going to Sanctuary, and basically sends him off to become a serial killer, destroys his entire Flash run until the last few issues, which are admittedly pretty good, where he does try to retcon some of the Heroes in Crisis crap out of it. But they massacred my boy in Heroes in Crisis, and there has been a lot of work, especially on the part of Jeremy Adams, but also Scott Lobdell and Brett Booth, to try and rehab the character and get him back to where he was, even though we had been without Wally West for so long. That was the selling point of Rebirth, and they just keep shitting on this character. And they keep shitting on Roy Harper, too. Why is he the guy that has to be mind-warped or whatever by Amanda Waller? Why didn't they use Connor Hawke? No one misses that character. Everyone misses Roy Harper Arsenal. Bring the goddamn character back. The fact that he's not on Titans right now is a fucking travesty. It's a shame. It's a mockery. It's a Travis and mockery. You know what I'm saying? I'm fucking pissed about this stuff. And why do they keep doing this to Roy? He literally already had his daughter murdered. He had his arm removed that he needed for archery and all that kind of stuff. They've continuously screwed over Wally West and Roy Harper for reasons I do not understand. And I hope they are just completely absent in fucking Absolute Power, but obviously they won't be, because Roy Harper is one of the minions of Amanda Waller, who somehow, besides just being a somewhat maniacal and perhaps a little bit evil government bureaucrat, is now the fucking dark side or something. It's like, it's hard to take this stuff seriously. And I don't know why Heroes of Crisis. I don't even like think about it, because it makes me so mad what they did to Wally in that one. And Tom King really like fucked up the concept of the Speed Force, because apparently Jay Garrick and Barry and Wally and Jai and Iris and Wallace and the one from China and the one with the metal legs, Bolt or whatever her name is, if you have the Speed Force and if you lose control of your emotions, you're basically a nuclear bomb. That was the big idea from Tom King, to turn Wally West basically into a serial killer. And then not only was he a serial killer, let's rant on this a little bit. Not only did Wally West kill all the other heroes at Sanctuary, he actually used the Speed Force, went to the future, killed himself, brought his own body back so he would be among the body count, and then he framed Booster Gold and Harley Quinn to make it look like they were the ones that actually murdered everybody. Real heroic stuff there. And of course, he ended up getting kicked in the balls by Harley Quinn before being thrown in jail, and then somewhat being redeemed kind of by Scott Lobdell and Brett Booth in Flash Forward. But apparently Scott Snyder didn't like that, because it wasn't his idea. So then he made the Wally West on the Mobius chair, like, just really stupid. Kind of killed off that idea. And then finally Jeremy Adams came back and finally rescued the character. And then they gave him over to fucking Cy Spurrier, who guess what Cy Spurrier's big idea is now for Flash. He's going to do a Barry Allen versus Wally West event, another Flash war. If Josh Williamson couldn't make that event respectable, what do we think Cy Spurrier can do with that stupid concept to begin with? He's going to make it absolutely terrible. And there's a reason there's no staying power to his Flash series, because there's nothing about it that's hopeful or interesting or even feels like a Flash book to begin with. Finally, they state, while the DC canon has largely moved on from the events of Heroes in Crisis, the existence of the backlogs of Sanctuary's testimonials does pose a unique threat, especially with Waller expected to target all metahumans' weaknesses and absolute power. And you know what's really weird? Like DC moving on from Heroes in Crisis and kind of moving it out of canon and stuff. I know people that as soon as they read Heroes in Crisis number 8, where it was revealed that Wally West was a serial killer that killed everybody, they didn't read DC Comics anymore. They literally canceled all their pulls and stopped reading comic books. Now, because I'm a good guy and I'm able to point out the kind of the good stuff going on there and warn people of the bad stuff, I have found a few people that have come back, at least on a limited basis, to DC Comics and read the good stuff out there. The best example being Eric O'Sullivan, the Sultan of Soup himself. Sully actually stopped reading all DC Comics after Heroes in Crisis. He hated it that much. Do we really want to remind Sully that Heroes in Crisis ever existed? I don't know, dare him to walk away once again by including something that was so fucking repugnant, so repulsive, so disgusting the first time that it was put in there that it made him just stop reading comic books altogether at the time. I don't think this is a smart move. I think it's a really stupid move. Do I think that the logs from Sanctuary are going to play an enormous role in Absolute Power and the full Heroes in Crisis canon is going to be mixed into it? I imagine there's a chance they're smart enough not to do that. But just any reminder that it ever even existed is a stupid idea on the face of it, just like reminding people about the fucking Draco, just like reminding people about the Rick Grayson era of Nightwing and all this stuff. So I think this is a terrible idea. There's a reason basically everyone hates Heroes in Crisis except for a couple of people out there that are the shilliest of the fucking shills. And I think they're going to regret this one because I think there's a good chance if Mark Waid didn't turn you off to Absolute Power to begin with, reminding you about Heroes in Crisis might get a lot of people over the hump to just walk away from this event before it ever even starts and just let their comic book shop know, you don't need to order that one for me. I think I'll just take that month off or the 2 months or whatever and basically move on with my life. We'll see if it's that dramatic or whatever. Perhaps it's the greatest event of all times. I won't know because I've got plenty of reasons to stay away from Absolute Power. If you would like more comic book coverage, comic book reviews, Q&As, all kinds of great podcasts, I do invite you to go check out the Patreon. The Thinking Critical Patreon is the hottest place to be in comic books today. All your favorite guests and myself having a good time every single week. Upwards of 8 hours of brand new content available on the Patreon. Be there or be square. There's a link in the video description.